Are you watching Talking About? I'm John Griffith.
And I'm JC Alvarez.
Hey! How are you?
I'm great. Considering. No, I'm great. You know, it's like summer's winding down, and I've been around, you know, just visiting a lot of places. So I've been taking advantage of the time. I, went to Ireland and Ecuador, and
Okay.
yeah.
So you really are getting around.
I have. It's been a lot of fun. Just
Usually when someone says they get around, it means they're whoring around.
Well. Fortunately, I've been out of the country. Is what I was trying to say. But so I've been able to visit some places during the summer, which has been really kind of nice. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's like, my home life is kind of upside down. If anyone follows me on social media, it's like I'm at the tail end of a kitchen reno.
Social media? What the heck is that?
It's this thing that nitwits send 140 characters about.
It's like now social media's turned into like almost like an ugly word. You know?
Honestly, it's like I was off social media for about a day and a half last week, and it was the happiest I've been in a long time.
There's people who actually I've seen people who are daring themselves like on social media. They're like, I dare you to get off social media for 8 hours.
Okay.
And and
I can name that tune in one note.
And I'm like, I mean, I'm not very good at it. It's like I don't seem to use the platforms really well. And lately I've just been using it in an angrily way, which bothers me a lot. But it's given the temperature of things, it's kind of like, what am I going to do? Yeah,
well, I mean, there's a whole lot going on. In the world, domestically and internationally.
Yeah.
And perhaps through your travels, I mean, there's a lot to touch on. Maybe your recent travels, you can kind of filter some of the view from the outside looking in.
It's remarkable. I mean, I guess you're talking about the person in the White House, who I will not say the president.
Yeah, number 45.
It is kind of strange, especially having traveled, where you kind of like find yourself in a situation where you're apologizing for what's happening in the United States of America, and you kind of like feel like, how are people perceiving us? Are they sympathetic, or do they kind of like look at us like, what the hell are you doing, or
That's
what
the
has
one.
happened? Yeah,
that's the one.
Which is really scary. It's kind of like because America, has always been sort of like a world leader.
Right, and now it's Angela Merkel.
And God bless her.
Yes.
God bless her.
Just won her fourth term.
Yeah.
Just reelected.
Yeah. So it's really strange times. It's really interesting. Situation.
Yeah, I mean, I was traveling last year just before the election. It's like there were a lot of people traveling internationally, and they were like, "Who the f?" Yeah. And it was just like, ugh.
Yeah, and
I say that a lot.
Yeah. I remember last year, leading up to the election, I would run into a lot of people, a lot of young women who weren't planning on voting, and it always surprised me, kind of like when they would just like say this. And especially like what always surprised me was always young women of minority who are just like, I'm not going to go vote. And I'm like, well, you're not going to go vote. I mean, this might be one of the most defining moments of your history to go vote. Well, I got to say, like, after the election, I really thought about those young women that said, that they weren't going to go vote. And I kind of like think about them almost every single day since the election, because of the state that things are in are kind of shocking.
And yes, and those who voted third party, who were in very close states, where a third party vote can really make the difference. I mean, we're in New York. We have a lot of people in California, where the state was pretty much locked for one candidate over the other, and even some of the deep South states were locked for a candidate in the other direction. But in some of the Middle America states where it was that close, that third party protest vote was a vote thrown away.
Correct. And now things feel like and if things feel for you like they've been thrown into a chaotic state, I mean, and you feel like this is not normal. This is not normal. This is not normal. I mean, it's, I mean, between us, we've certainly seen a lot of presidents, and I voted for some and voted for not, but I've never been in a situation where I didn't have faith in my president. You know, even during a recent administration where I kind of like felt like, you know, I stood by, you know, second Bush during those times. You know, it's like, you know, now it's like I really don't know how to feel.
I think yeah, it's like during the Bush 2.0, I respected the office of the president, not necessarily the decisions of the man in the office.
Right.
And I wasn't angry all the time, though.
Yeah.
There were certain things that made me angry, and certain things that I actually respected.
Right.
You know, there was a degree of balance.
Right.
Yeah, it might not have been everything in the favor that I was, but that's, you know, the difference between the parties and the points of view as they should be to a degree. Right.
And it's what you do with that anger, because it's kind of like, you know, you really want to channel that energy in a way that's positive. It's hard, you know. I mean, just you know, we had three devastating situations with the weather, with hurricanes recently.
Yes.
And you know, right now we're in a situation where Puerto Rico is in a terrible state.
Yeah, for probably 95% without power at this point.
Right.
I think as of this afternoon, I heard that the airport was pretty much fully functional, and the ports were functional again, so supplies can get in now, which is a good thing. But there are still hospitals that are running out of fuel for generators and things like that. And we do have a couple of websites for some charities that are doing some good. One is a GoFundMe that a chef in Brooklyn set up, and he's actually fed up with the government not doing anything. So he started a GoFundMe to directly send money to people affected, and there's another one that's part of another charitable organization. So if we're going to just flip back and forth with that on screen, I would appreciate it, because
well, and it's great to see that people are, you know, individuals, citizens are taking it upon themselves, because really, you know, the person in the White House would rather spend their weekend, you know, having a fight with the NFL, which is really remarkable that is happening.
Yes, I mean, you have the platform of being, you know, one of the more powerful supposed leaders in this country, and you're using it to send 141 negative characters decrying the NFL.
Yeah, literally. I mean, it's like, because that's the other thing that I think is also kind of shameful about the whole situation. It's not an argument. It's not an argument that's being had with individuals face to face, or like, you know, it's not one of those kind of things. It's being done through social networking in a way that just really sends not only the wrong message, but it's also sending all these really odd messages that just don't connect or don't make any sense. They're very cowardly. You know, it's like we have a situation here where the person that's sitting in the White House would rather sit in a chair behind their cell phone and lash out at NFL football players.
I visualize it as like 4 a.m. coke-fueled tweets.
There are a lot of people out there that think that. I'm kind of fearful that it might be that kind of a situation, but at the same time, it's really frightening to me that someone is so narrow-minded that they're not looking at the broader picture of what the story is, and why these individuals have taken this stand for more than a year. I mean, it's like the NFL football players have been bending at the knee to protest what they felt was injustice towards, you know, the minority communities that they come from.
And there are people who misconstrue it as that they're protesting against the flag, the veterans, protesting against the anthem itself. It's taking a stand to try to bring
attention to something. Yeah. Now I think it's taken on a whole different, you know, especially this past weekend after what happened in Alabama last week with, you know, the hate speeching and all the stuff that was going on, and, you know, the grandstanding and just all that chaoticness. But I really think it's evolved into something else. I think now it has turned into sort of a us versus them kind of thing, and us meaning all of us versus you know, him.
Right, and and his base.
And his base, right? The 33% that are holding us hostage. You know, which is really kind of a shame. I actually, interestingly enough, watched a 60 Minutes this past week where Oprah Winfrey was moderating.
I saw a little bit of that.
And it just, she's moderating a group of maybe like, I think it was 10 individuals.
I think it was 7 and 7.
14 individuals. Some were Trump supporters, some were not. And she just asked them really mild questions about, what was happening during, how they were feeling. And it just really astounded me. And I hate to say this, but just the ignorance that was just being portrayed, sort of like people really were kind of like really looking at things through rose-colored glasses, and it's sort of like they really are very comfortable to sit in that space of, oh, there's nothing here, there's nothing here to see.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah.
But I think that does happen on both sides, but I think right now it's kind of extreme on one more than the other.
Yeah.
You can't really tell people how to think, what to say, and what to do, but you can try to be open. You can try to encourage people to be open to different points of view, and I don't think that we have that dialogue as effectively as we should right now.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like, you got someone who keeps throwing up smoke screens and is diverting our attention from seeing something that's very crystal clear and apparent. And it's just if something doesn't smell right, if it's doesn't smell right, look right, there's something.
If you're in the fields with the cows and the piles are producing this odor, more than likely it's bullshit.
Yeah, and it really, it's hard to perceive that there's a contrary opinion when you have so much evidence, to the contrary.
Right.
It's very shocking. And we are kind of like pussyfooting around a lot of the words, just because I think that, we also want to be respectful. I think there's a certain amount of wanting to be open with honest with our opinions, but also open to the fact that, not everyone's going to think the way that we do.
Right, but I go to see a physical therapist from time to time, and he is on the other side of the spectrum, and we have some interesting conversations.
Sure.
But I listen to him, he listens to me. Sometimes he'll say, "Oh, I never thought of it like that," and sometimes I'll say the same thing. So that's the respectful dialogue that should be happening at a much higher level. But
it's hard. It's hard to have respectful dialogue when when the individual in that seat of power doesn't have respectful dialogue with anyone else.
It's a position of extreme white privilege, extreme, in my opinion, extreme bigotry, ignorance about how the government works. Coupled with incredible media savvy.
Right, yeah.
And it's the incredible media savvy that's throwing everything else off kilter.
Yeah.
Because every time that something comes into focus where people's attention should be, in 141 characters, he manages to divert attention to minuscule things that can be blown out of proportion. Not to call the NFL protests minuscule, but it took what was represented as a peaceful protest for people of color who were being disenfranchised into, as we said before, the impression that it's speaking out against the flag, against the Constitution. These people are, that's not the original intent of it.
Yeah, and there's a level of hypocrisy that occurs that's a little astounding in that, he's no longer campaigning.
Oh, yes, he is.
I mean, I know he's campaigning to that degree, but he's got to keep, his base sort of like really fired up. And the hypocrisy. We just learned that Jared Kushner
is they're using private email servers to conduct government business.
Yeah, to conduct government business. Well, just a year ago during the campaign,
still during the rallies, he's still chanting to lock.
Yeah, and that's really sort of like, and that no one is reacting to that in the way they should be reacting.
The news media. Who should be thoroughly vetting, no matter who's in power, thoroughly vetting what's going on, what's being said, and what's being done, are giving a free pass to a degree.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, and really the media, you know, we're responsible. I mean, it's like, you know, the messages that we put out there and you know, the truth telling that has to be done. Right now, it's a major component of really being called to the mat and really being held accountable for what we're saying, because it's sort of like so many people are confused and can be easily manipulated, and there's just a lot of people that are just really, you know, they're just relaxed about this whole situation. And you know what? There's nothing. If that's a state that they want you to be in, that relaxed kind of like numb state,
right?
You know,
the good thing about the bad thing is that people who were not previously politically active are becoming politically active. Right. People who were not voicing their opinions on the same social media that we were just griping about are now voicing their opinions on social media and trying to encourage and educate their friends and family and about the issues that are important to them. Even you know, somebody who we saw tonight, a couple fairly recently, I had a conversation with her, and she, who wasn't previously politically vocal, has done some politically vocal things, some you know, programming on these very channels, and that's a little bit of an inspiration to me. That gives me a glimmer of hope, no matter what side of the political spectrum you fall on. Number 45 doesn't really fall on either side. Unfortunately, you know, the right side has kind of rallied around it, but that's just opportunism, really.
Oh, incredibly.
And somebody who's the gullible man in chief, and there's just I have a ramble going through my head, so I am not going to spit out a proper sentence right now.
It's also. You know, both of us are you know, I'm a product of public school system, and it's sort of like, you know, when I was in high school, and I was just talking about this the other day, you know, civics was such an important part of my education, and I remember, and as a Cuban, you know, growing up in Florida, South Florida, where it's predominantly Republican, and you know, that was just sort of like all those instincts were kind of like what we were nurtured around. But I remember, you know, sitting in my civics class and sort of like debating what I had known what I grew up knowing, and kind of like deciding, well, when am I going to decide for myself, you know, what it is that I'm gonna seek out for my, or what I want socially to happen within my government. What's the message that I'm going to be sending out? And I had one of those teachers who sort of like always, you know, told me, it's like, you know, don't stop asking questions just because you have one. You know, you got to listen to both sides and what's happening, and you got to pay attention. You know, now don't just go with what you're hearing around you.
Yeah, you know? But now we have school systems in some deep red areas who are
don't even
eliminating critical thinking. Teaching critical thinking because they want cheap.
Sure. Yeah, it's and that's and this is not a knock at you know, educational school systems. It's just that it's, you know, we should be a society, and we should always be a culture of asking questions. And I learned that from my father. I mean, it's like, you know, I remember being a little kid and always, you know, being forced to ask. Right. You know how like kids aren't allowed.
And I know that you and he don't always agree politically either.
No, but God bless him for that, because I think that's one of the more wonderful things and the best part of my relationship with my father, that, you know, we can disagree, but I'm going to learn something from that disagreement, and that's valuable, you know, because we can stop and listen, you know, and have that much respect for one another. But there's such a total lack of respect with what's happening right now, where, you know, had the idiot in chief just reached out and asked, what's going on? Why is everyone on their knees at football games? Can someone set up a meeting? You know, had someone just done that, we wouldn't be 5 days in. We'd be worrying about Puerto Rico, which is what should be sort of like the focus. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a week plus into the crisis, and finally, after being torn down by the media and people everywhere, finally a date to go over and visit. But there was again another tweet blaming the situation over there on themselves.
Right.
It's like, oh, the infrastructure is bad. They have all this debt, and but because of their status as a territory,
right,
they weren't allowed to restructure their debt to help themselves get out of debt, and that falls back on Congress, which is under the control of one party.
They haven't paid Wall Street back yet, and it's kind of like, whoa! And these are
people don't have clean water.
It's you have to weigh between people are people are not dollar signs. And it's sort of like I've never seen. I mean, even when Katrina hit and that sort of like was a life lesson for presidents after that, how that was all handled.
It wasn't learned.
It wasn't learned. And it really, this is just a really now dangerous perception of what not to do in this situation. It's really embarrassing in a lot of degrees. When you think about it. But.
Yeah. But again, people need to start asking questions and not just blindly follow, what they see on social media, because so much of what you see on social media is not true. I mean, there have been proven that there are little think tanks of sites that are pumping out misleading, bogus news stories.
Well,
people
Facebook. we just found out that Facebook was warned that there was this sort of menace of Russian interference, and they said, oh no, that could never happen, and
now it comes out that it did.
And then it comes out that it did, and it's sort of, where did the responsibility lie there? Ultimately, at the end of the day, responsibility lies in us as citizens. There was a recent vote here in New York City to vote in a primary election to vote for a mayor, and de Blasio, they say won by a landslide, but voter turnout was really, really low.
Yeah, I think in my district, it was maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people that showed up.
Yeah, and when you really think about it, it's sort of like that's like a day where it really shouldn't be, especially in the situations that we're all in right now. Really your vote matters regardless of what you might think or feel right now. It really is important that continue to be the drive.
Right. I mean, voting in off-cycle elections is just as important as voting every 4 years for for the so-called commander-in-chief. And it's like you need to participate. You need to get out and vote, and you need to do your part. Otherwise, you have absolutely no right to complain about it after the fact.
So, do you think that we're heading towards impeachment or cataclysmic civil war?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm stockpiling my blood pressure medication. I'm stockpiling my cholesterol medication.
I got my peppers, so I'm stuck up with my seasonings, and it's really kind of depressing because it's sort of like to the effect that. For us, it's kind of like, we're really not going to see the long-term effects of what's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's generations.
It's generations, and take you in the court, and it's just there's just so much going on, and I want to remind the viewer that we do have the websites for the Aid to Puerto Rico sites, and make a donation. Even if you can only afford $5, it's $5. It's going to go and help somebody. And if you don't like the two that we have, I'll research and find out charities. And if you're looking for a charity, you want to make sure that at least 80 or 85% of what you donate is going to help the people that are in need, and it's not an organization
that divides up
or with
funds.
or with 50% administrative costs, or going to fund somebody's golf course.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, because he doesn't need the money.
No, and it's not. It's only going to him.
He gets it from Russia.
Ooh, yeah. That's a topic for a whole other show. I would need to bring in an expert on that one.
Yes, because we want to be very careful.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it comes down to you need to become an informed citizen.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, and this is one of the avenues to do that. It's participate, engage dialogue, talk with your neighbors, know your neighbors. It's the best way to really make, because this world is really not that big, especially in the digital era that we live in. It's smaller than you think.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends around the world who I've never met in person, but I do consider them to be part of my circle. I mean,
well, this show goes around the world. It's
exactly.
like we found out that there's audiences that watch this in parts of the country.
Yeah, in Middle Eastern countries, especially, it's like where there's a filter on what people can see and watch. Yeah. But I don't know. We could spend a whole hour on this. We could probably do a weekly segment on this and still not cover everything.
Figure out what we're going to call it, that you can say it on the air.
So you've got some stuff going on the web right now?
Well, check out my websites. Go to thefansite.com. I have a lot of entertainment things that are happening in popular culture right now that are great, and and a lot of that's happening. And I've been on the Comic-Con convention circuit and actually
moderating some stuff.
I know. Who thought I could do that?
Hopefully there'll be much more of that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a little more of that too.
And I'm busy here and www.talkingabout.info. You got our YouTube channel at talkingabout_TV. You're at JC Alvarez.
Can't miss it. Yeah.
Keep looking for us. Keep finding us. We're here. We're queer. Get used to it.
All of those rallying cries. Act up now.
Thank you for watching. I'm John Griffith.
I'm JC Alvarez.
And we hope to see you again real soon. And very soon we might find out exactly what Car has been up to.
Where is she?
Everything starts out small. The things that hurt us, they all start from somewhere. The words we say, the things we do, they can grow into something else. What was small and innocent can become big and sometimes scary. All it takes is one comment, one picture, one video for something to catch fire. But a big problem doesn't need a big response. Not at first. Even if we don't know what to say, the eye emoji can be that first step we take. Let's all pledge to take that first small step together and change the world in a big way. I'm a witness, and so are you.